Let me tell you the truth about the American dream. It's not what you think, and it comes with a much larger price tag than you imagine. How much does it cost to live the American dream? For a majority of people, it is a lot more than we can afford. Household would have to spend more than $150,000 a year in 29 of the 50 states, according to GoBankingRates.com, to live that American dream. So when you think 29 of 50 states is north of $150,000, it's kind of crazy. And they do break it down kind of state by state. $137K to live in Ohio is the American dream. However, it's $245,000 when you look at California. So what exactly is the definition of an American dream? Now, the American dream is getting married, raising 2 children, owning a home, 1 car as a car, having 1 pet, and of course, this kind of covers everything. Now, every state factoring in different costs like mortgages, annual health care, education, groceries, pet care. After tailing the expenses, they had to add the buffer in there for not only the discretionary spending, but also the savings. So we're gonna go ahead and break this down for the middle of the country. This is gonna be a breakdown of Illinois, a middle price or mid-priced American state, ranking 26th least expensive among all of the 50 states, and the numbers get kind of crazy. The median home price in Illinois is $255,000. Annual child care runs you $24K. Annualized mortgage $21,000. Cars around $9,000. Groceries $8,000. Healthcare $7,000. Utilities $5,000. Education $2,500. $1,100 for a pet gives you $78,000 as an annual total for just having kind of the basis, having the needs covered at that point. You factor in the discretionary spending. The full American dream to live in Illinois is around $157,000. That is the American dream. Really kind of crazy to think the price tag that it does come with. And of course, that is annualized. Now, when you start thinking of that big picture of the $157K that is annualized, the median household income at that time and at that exact time is $75K. So when you think of the disparity between the American Dream 156, the actual income that you're getting is around $75K on the median household is kind of crazy to think, meaning that, probably almost 60% of people cannot afford this American Dream at all. But there's an interesting breakdown as well. What does the American Dream cost in a lifetime? So when you think of a year annualized, and kind of how that breaks down, what does it look like on a big picture window on how the American Dream looks in a lifetime? This was a financial media site, Investopedia, talking about the American Dream. They estimate that it costs $3.4 million your entire life for the American Dream. And this is how they systematically break it down. It is kind of staggering to think of $3.4 million. But when you think of the average American in their lifetime earns about $2.3 million, meaning you're about $1.1 million short from actually being able to live and sustain the life that a majority of people are living, which is the reason why we see an exorbitant amount of debt. Even looking now, the debt on credit cards alone was $1.13 trillion in credit card debt, meaning that a majority of what we have right here is just finance from Americans. So let's see how they break it down. Now, looking at lifetime health insurance costs, $934,000 is what they estimate for health insurance costs. And of course, this is based on the lifetime. Average home plus your mortgage and interest, $800,000. That's right, guys. When you think about your house, if you're, let's say, in my case, buying a $300,000 home, if you carry it all 30 years, you end up paying about, and I think it's very close to that $800,000 price tag when you factor in the interest. Over the 30-year period, you pay for your house about 2.5 times instead of just paying for it up front. Raising 2 children around $576,000. Lifetime of owning a car, $271,000 is the price tag for that. Lifetime pet care, $68,000. College, they're saying around $42,000. Wedding and engagements, $35,000. Delivering 2 babies, roughly $6,000 there. Retirement, $715,000 is the estimated retirement cost when you retire. Now, it's kind of crazy to think because the majority of Americans, when you think of the price tag again of retirement, $715,000. Majority of Americans have about at retirement age around $150K. That is in those retirement funds, which means, again, supplementing Social Security, everything else, kind of crazy to think. And then, of course, funeral expenses range about $8,000. So again, when you look at the total price tag, that does accommodate and account for $3.4 million. However, when you look at the income generation during that time, you're really not anywhere close to this. So, how did we get such a massive disparity between where the American dream is and what people kind of envision it, and really where we're at today? Big thing, of course, is the runaway house prices put the American dream out of reach for everybody. When you start looking at the rising cost of housing, even looking at rent, where we're at, and I know rent is not part of the American dream, but rent is out of control. When you look at mortgages, the price of homes are out of control. It is kind of crazy. The median sale price of existing homes rose more than 40% from 2020 to 2022. So in 2 years, you have a 40% increase in the housing, topping out at a seasonal peak of over $400,000, according to the National Association of Realtors. And this, of course, is kind of taking everyone together. Home prices still continue to rise. When you look at 23 and 24, you are still seeing almost a 5% increase on top of the 40% increase that we already seen. Then you double it with mortgage rates, which are currently roughly 7.2%, which is kind of crazy because, of course, in 2022, they were 3%. So not only have houses went up about 45% in the last, 4 years, we have seen mortgage rates double in that exact same time frame, putting this entirely out of reach for the majority of individuals. Now, of course, we don't know at what point are they going to start lowering taxes, or lowering the Fed's fund rate, but the Fed cut rates are going to have to happen sooner than later because essentially most people cannot afford where they're at. Then we get into the talk of retirement. When we looked at that figure of $715,000 to retire, assuming a household only needs 80% of the income that they earned working for a 12-year retirement, that is what it is going to cost. By and large, people are not saving enough of their regular paycheck towards retirement, which is exactly where a lot of people are falling short. When you start looking at the median household income, $87,000 was the median household income or retirement savings in 2022, and over 50% of retirees that were of retirement age had zero in savings, zero in retirement, in Roth, in 401ks. It's kind of crazy. Then you couple on top of that all of the increased costs for childcare, for groceries, for pet care, for pretty much everything else. And it's just kind of crazy because when you look at a couple places, and they noted Alaska, Hawaii, California, Washington, and Oregon, they said that grocery bills are now topping about $10,000 a year, which is kind of crazy. And a majority of states, childcare is exceeding $20,000 to $30,000, which is incredibly, incredibly expensive just for childcare, essentially, so you can work. So if you're, making $50,000 a year, you're spending $20,000 to $30,000 to put your kids in childcare. Is it really worth it when you start breaking down all of the taxes and everything? Then, of course, we think younger America. When you look at younger Americans, when you look at, the 18 to 30-year-old, it makes it almost impossible to live the American dream and almost impossible to get into a house, to actually purchase a house. We're even seeing now in the financial institution that a lot of people cannot qualify for debt to income ratios, not only because they're carrying a lot of student loan debt, but in addition to that, when you couple on all of the regular expenses and being able to save with the cost of, college, if you have childcare, if you have to buy a first home, most of the milestones are moving 5, 10, 15 years down essentially the timeline because they don't have enough money to get into the American dream and get actually into a home. So guys, that is going to do it for today's video. Let me know in the comments what you guys think about the overarching numbers. It is insane to see why it is so hard for Americans to live in the true cost of the American dream. And as always, thank you guys for watching.